we're back with a dynamic woman and someone who has been a mentor in my life. She's also my pastor and friend, Apostle Deatria L. Gates. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
Can we talk a little bit about the way the LGBT community is treated by traditional religious groups for a minute? Why is it so hard to encompass all and to judge not? Why can't we all just get along?
Now, are you sure you want me to answer that?
I mean, I yes.
And this is my own personal belief. I think, as I mentioned earlier, fear is a big issue. Because we've been trained in our traditional churches to think and love and do and be a certain way. And so anything outside of that is very uncomfortable. People become very fearful and afraid. And there's a scripture, if I may add, that perfect love casts out fear. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm not giving you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And so when we walk in fear, then we tend to isolate ourselves from people who may even reflect certain personalities and characteristics within ourselves who we're not willing to embrace. See, if I don't embrace who I am, then I can never embrace who you are. And you don't have to be who I am for me to embrace you. But when I learn to love myself first, then I can love you for who you are. And I think, for the most part, traditional church goers have not, for whatever reason, learned to love themselves. They love a God who they project to be up in the sky somewhere when he actually lives within. And so I think once you love yourself and can embrace yourself, then you can embrace other communities and other people, and you can love them not in spite of, but because of who they are.
Well, I'm getting ready to share something pretty raw and authentic. I am a PK. That means I'm a preacher's kid, a pastor's daughter. Went through many challenges with my family. And I don't for 1 minute believe that there isn't love there. I think after having some conversations with her, that she believes that her mission is to kind of save my soul, that I'm in error, not realizing that I have the same values and the things that she has installed in me are still very present in my life. One of the things she had taught me was unconditional love, which is amazing that I think she struggles with it, I guess, tangibly. I think internally she does love, but she doesn't really know how to express that, especially being a minister of the gospel.
But let me say this. I must reflect on when you came to the church and how I myself at that time, it was years ago, I was challenged because my thinking hadn't quite developed to the degree it has now. And so I found myself having to look at who you are and recognizing the gifts that God had given you. And I had to settle within myself that, my God, okay, she has a different orientation than most people, but in spite, no, really. But in spite of that, I cannot deny that I see the power of God working in her life. And it helped me to decide, do I embrace her because I see the love of God, and I see the power of God, and I see the gifts of God, or do I side with traditional teaching and fundamental teaching and cast her to the wolves? And I made a decision. No, I recognize God in her life. And in spite of her orientation or whatever, I must embrace the power of God that I see moving in her life. And if you can remember, we had many conversations about that. And I told you, I said, honey, if they said something about me standing with you, that I would just rather be talked about.
You did.
But I had to stand with what I
love you
knew.
for that.
Thank you. But I recognized God, and I had to even go against my own self and war within myself to recognize that there was something going on inside of you, and I chose to embrace you. And I think around that time was when I began to open up my thinking. I began to become more aware of the love of God on a totally different level. I challenged myself. I had problems with it.
Right.
I must say, I'm like, wait a minute, this goes against everything I've been taught.
Right.
I said, but I cannot deny what I'm seeing. And it was a leap of faith. I just decided I'm going to embrace her. I'm going to embrace you. And I did, and I'm so glad I did.
Me
because
too.
You've been a great instrument in my life and a great blessing. And
bless you.
in a lot of cases, you've saved my life. And I want to thank you for that.
Okay.
So,
I'm okay. Well, thank you, Apostle, for that. That's
but let me also address, for so long we've been told that you had to come a certain way in order to receive Christ. It goes back to, I've got to try to save you. Well, Jesus did that on the cross. And the gospel of inclusion is simply the good news. Whosoever will, let him come. He didn't say, well, you have to do certain things before you come. He said, just if you hear my voice, harden not your heart, come. Whosoever will. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. So the gospel of inclusion is the good news that the price has already been paid, that there's nothing old. God just wants you to embrace him as much as he wants to embrace you.
Wow, it's beautiful. I love love so much.
Yeah.
Do you think that Christians have gotten a bad rap?
What do you mean when you say a bad rap?
Because of stereotypical things, which works in the reverse even. You know, some people stereotype us.
Sure.
So I think our community stereotypes them.
Sure.
You're talking about religious communities. And in that, we've heard some of these same speeches over and over, that we don't think that they're out of love, they're more of an attack. So you hear those flags go up as soon as someone starts to quote a scripture or they start to manipulate, we feel, some of the Bible just to exclude our community. So saying that I'm a Christian and being gay sometimes are not associated with each other, or religion, I should say, because they're more than just Christianity that we're.
Yeah, I think fear is just because fear is the opposite of faith, and hate is the opposite of love.
Right.
And so, because we don't operate in true love, and because we don't allow the love of God.
Who doesn't? Are we speaking of the church? Or are we speaking of?
Because if I'm a gay person and the church has hurt me, I have to still operate in love to love the church or Christendom or religion in spite of. I may not agree with them, but I must love them if I'm going to move on. So it is with the church world. If they operate in true love, then if you are involved in a lifestyle that I don't condone or I believe is wrong or bad, here again, the love of God will help me or allow me the ability to look beyond that and love you as a person, a child of God, as a human being, if nothing else. Even if you don't think that that person is a child of God, they are a human being.
You know, what I find really interesting is that our communities, speaking of African American communities, can inflict that same pain of discrimination on someone else